guys, I am here to teach history for today. We are in a brand new chapter. We have left the Revolutionary War and we are looking at what happens next. What do the Americans do now that they are free from the British? So, you were supposed to have read pages 92 through 95 after yesterday's video with Mrs. Ricard, and some things that you should take away are we now have America and they create a confederation, so the states are joined together. However, they're not really joined together because there's not one government. There's really like 13 governments for each of the states. So problems arise because people now want equality. Because the reason that they went to war in the first place was because they felt like they weren't equal to the British. Remember, taxation without representation. They were being taxed without having any say in the matter. So this led to a lot of problems such as disrespect of authority, more children beginning to disrespect their parents, students rebelling against their teachers, wives rejecting the authority of their husbands. There's just so many problems because they were so eager to have equality that they forgot that even with equality, there still has to be law and order. There still has to be rules. So the thought was, well, we want a republic, and for a republic, you must have moral people to have a moral government. So moral people equals moral government, and wicked people equals wicked government. So along comes James Madison, and James Madison says, if the size of the country grew from 13 small governments or republics to one large republic, no one faction could seize control of the government. And a faction is a group of people whose ideas are different from the larger group. So they're kind of getting everybody to believe what they want. Okay, so he believed that if we were one government, if we had one government, then that couldn't happen. So, leading into that, we also have the event of Shays Rebellion. And I know that Mrs. Ricard talked a little bit about that, but the people in Western Massachusetts revolted because their money was worth less each year. So people with debts were put in jail. States raised taxes because they needed money to run the government, because yes, to run a government, you must have money, which is why there are taxes, but they didn't want to be taxed. So they had to have tax, and they were raising those taxes, and people couldn't pay those taxes. And so a Revolutionary War veteran named Daniel Shays raised an army of 2,000 men in protest of what was happening with the money. And they attacked a courthouse and an armory, which is where weapons are held. And they attacked these two places, but they still end up losing. But it did make people question, what's going on? Like, is this what we want for our country? And so they have the Articles of Confederation. And the Articles of Confederation was a very weak form of government. It had no power. There was no way for people to enforce laws or make the states work together or paying off debt that the United States had because of the Revolutionary War. So there was a lot of lack in the Articles of Confederation, and it led to a lot of problems in the first part of the new country, and it's understandable that, hey, they don't know what they're doing. It's a trial and error. So they knew that the Articles of Confederation aren't working. So in 1787, they decide to have a convention, and in that convention there will be representatives from all of the states so that they can come up with a solution. And so that is what you read yesterday. So all of that is what you should have taken away from yesterday's lesson. So basically understand this. We had an Articles of Confederation. That Articles of Confederation was weak. It did not work. States were weak. States were having protests. Shays Rebellion. Although the protests for Shays Rebellion didn't work, it still made people question what's going on in our country. we're brand new to this whole country thing. We're free from the British, and look, we're fighting. Okay, so they're learning. And so now they're going to have a convention, and they're going to go through the ideas and come up with a much better government. But before we get to talk about that, I want to just remind you that up here is the study guide, and I am going to show you the answers, as well as the answers being in the answer key that was sent to you. I'm going to show it to you anyway. It is optional. It is not something that we will collect, but if you want to do it, great. If you don't, great. But maybe talk about these things and make sure you understand what is being taught, what was taught in that lesson. So this was a lot of like glossary information. So faction is a group of people whose ideas are different from the larger group. Republican government, republic, Morel, Shays Rebellion, confederation. A confederation is a form of government in which states agree to act together on certain issues. So basically it takes the states and kind of puts them together, but they can pick and choose what they want to work together, which is why it was so weak to begin with. Okay, and I'm going to scroll it down. Okay, so here, like I said, certain sins became more common. For example, students rebelling against their teachers would be a great thing to put there. What does the Bible say about a person's relationship to authority? We need to obey those in authority, those who are older and who are maybe higher than us. Like we all have parents, or you have teachers, we have bosses. Like there's always going to be authority no matter how old you are. Okay, what was often the result when the best men were not elected? So they would want to propose laws that benefit them and not their representatives or who they were representing. Okay. Briefly explain the weakness of the Articles of Confederation. Like I said, it couldn't pay the nation's debt. Congress could not enforce laws, and the states often did not work together. Okay, so that's really the only page that you were supposed to do yesterday, because you were supposed to do 65 through 67. And then today, you're going to do 68 through 69 if you so choose. So before I get to that, I want to just really quickly talk about a few things that you're going to learn in the next section. So pages 96 through 99. You're going to learn about the Constitutional Convention. This is where the men came together and created the government that we know of today. Some of those important men include George Washington, James Madison, James Wilson, Roger Sherman, and you're going to read all about Roger Sherman. The problem when you have a group of people, whether it's men, women, kids, you're always going to have disagreements, and they're going to have debates, and they're going to have to pick and choose from all of these different ideas what is best for the country. And what's great is that they do that. They come up with the government that we know of today. They come up with those three branches of government. They come up with a strong but limited government. They came up with what we know today. Okay? The biggest person to have an influence, and the one that we really look at, is Sherman. Okay, and Sherman's compromise is something that you're going to learn about. You're going to learn about the three branches of government. So that is what you're going to read about today. So you're reading pages 96 through 99 and doing study guide pages 68 through 69 if you so choose. So I'm going to show you what those look like. Okay, so I know that maybe you talked about these yesterday with Mrs. Ricard, but that's okay. If you already did these, that's fine. You're ahead. But that is what is on your plan for today. So, Constitutional Convention, you're going to write the definitions of anti-federalist and sovereignty. What was the goal of the Constitutional Convention? And you're just going to continue on. Okay, something else that you'll talk about in those pages is the Bill of Rights. Okay, and then here's this article about Roger Sherman. Okay, and then you will answer those questions. So, I just want to say it again, the study guide is optional, but it does help reinforce what you've learned in the chapter. So make that choice, or maybe don't write it down but talk about it, because then when the test comes it will be easier. Again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I hope you have something to take away from it, and I hope that you're having a good day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.